Hey guys, Jason Scroller with Modern Rodding, and behind me is my 29 Model A. Well, it's about time for brakes. Called my buddy up, Mike, and said, hey, what kind of pedal setup do you guys have for under the dash? And well, this is what he said.
We don't. We honestly leave a lot of the specific applications up to our distributors and people that know these vehicles. And Kugel is one of them.
Yep.
The guys at Kugel, they live, breathe, and eat hot rods.
Absolutely.
Right? For
especially
a very
this
long
early
time.
stuff.
Yeah. Totally know these cars way better than Wilwood would.
Yep.
So I said, listen, you probably want to look at what they offer, and it's going to be a 90-degree pedal. And you said, that's kind of crazy. And I said, super common. It'll be a 90-degree pedal for the brakes, and it might be 90 or reverse for the clutch, but everything will package so it's underneath the dash, which is what you were looking for.
And it fit perfect.
Yeah. So the things that we need to know are what the leverage of the pedal was. We figured that out. And then Wilwood needs to know what you're running for brakes.
Yep.
So what are you deciding to do?
Well, I'm going with the most modern thing I could go with on this traditional build, and that's drum brakes all the way around.
And it's the big fin drum brakes.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, you're going to have plenty of brake for this lightweight car.
Yeah.
And that's what this whole type of build is about, right? Is the aesthetic, but fortunately, you're going to have more than enough brake because these brakes typically went on like a big sedan.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So what we did is we ran some numbers. We're not going to get into all that, but then decided, okay, how do you want to run the brake master cylinder and how do you want it to look? And what did you tell me?
Well, like everything else that I have with Wilwood, manual brakes. I think when you set them up properly, you're going to get everything you want out of that brake, and you're going to be able to fill that brake as you pump that pedal or come into a hard stop or just up to a stoplight.
So a couple things I asked you was, are you going to have enough room underneath the dash, or do we need to do everything remote for the reservoirs?
Sure.
And I remember you said, that's not something I thought about. And I said, well, typically in that dash, it's very compact, especially once you get gauges and you get all the electronics inside. So I said, you might want to look at doing a remote setup.
Yep.
So the first set of brakes that we sent was our tandem master cylinder, but for remote. So with this particular master cylinder, we've got our front and rear outlet, but we can remote these to something like our billet aluminum reservoirs, or even to just the traditional style plastic reservoir. Because of what you're trying to build the car aesthetically, I thought this was like spot on.
No, I saw those, I saw the colors, I loved it.
Right, so triple billet bracket, the billet reservoirs, those mounted somewhere like on the firewall or down below. But what did you find?
Well, once I got my pedals in there, there's not a whole lot of room underneath the Model A dash or even in the cockpit itself. Got the pedals all installed where I wanted them at the right height and realized that these were not going to be high enough to gravity feed any kind of fluid to where they needs to go. So again, I called up Mike and said, I have room under there to actually put the reservoirs under the dash. It's going to be a little harder for me to fill, but it's going to work good.
And you're probably not going to be servicing it all that often.
Hopefully I can fill them up once and drive for a while before I ever have to fill them up again.
Exactly. So even when we started mocking everything up, going to like the traditional plastic reservoirs, we're going to be able to get these underneath the dash with no problem. The thing that I like about these is they're not as beautiful as the billets, but we're going to have all of our fluid levels easy to identify.
Which is good when you're underneath either a dark dash or, you know, even if you put these on a frame rail. It's a lot easier to see your fluid levels than trying to get between the floorboard and the top of a cap or under a dash like we have.
Now, I thought about doing the same style master cylinder with the same reservoir, but after we mocked it up, what did we find?
There's just not enough room on the outer driver's side where the cowl comes across. These would have been a little too tall.
Yeah, it would have been much taller. These wouldn't have fit underneath the location in the dash that we needed to put it. So we really picked the right GS master cylinder for the clutch.
Sure.
I think it's all going to work great. Calculating the leverage, knowing that we're running a 1-inch bore master cylinder to those large wheel cylinders on all four corners. Here's one thing that you and I talked about today and you didn't really understand was why we need to run residual pressure valves.
Oh, I'm thinking, you know, we're not on a frame rail. We're not down. We're not lower than our wheel cylinders. We're much higher.
Yep. So there's rule of thumb with residual valves. Wilwood makes 2, 4, and 10 pound. Really, in the hot rod industry, we're going to be looking at the 2 pound for disc brake and the 10 pound for a drum brake. The reason that we've got to run 10 pound residual valves in this car, it didn't matter that it was on the floor, the master cylinder was on the floor, or if it's up high. It's that we need residual pressure to be always constant of 10 pounds so the wheel cylinders don't collapse.
Gotcha.
I think with all the components we've got here, I think we got the brakes covered.
Awesome. So for more videos and new products, visit motorrodding.com. And where do we find this?
Well, get a hold of Wilwood. So you can get a hold of us online at wilwood.com or give us a call at 805-388-1188.